Hey, what's up guys? Aaron Bennett here. In this video, I'm going to summarize the Celsius UCC Town Hall, which I did release the full version a few hours ago on my YouTube, but I'm going to summarize the hour-and-a-half chat that they had and just get to the main points of what they said. So they start out with insider clawbacks and looking at the transfers that insiders made, and like I made in a little short video I released earlier today, they said they want to batch them all together and basically do any type of lawsuits or investigations all at the same time at the end of the bankruptcy. And also they can make sure that any of those clawbacks or money that we get back from lawsuits or whatever can go to the bankruptcy fund, which will then be paid out to us. Next, talking about KERP, that key employee retention program. So Thomas DiFiore, who is a UCC member, basically says that it's important for certain employees to stick around and to incentivize them to not leave Celsius, because apparently there are some due diligence reports that need to be filed, and keeping them on as employees would actually be cheaper than hiring an outside advisor to do them. And there is, I think, 62 people that they're going to pay to do this. There's going to be a sign-on bonus and then a retention bonus, and this will cost around $3 million or so. But he is very sympathetic that it is frustrating to see more money just flow out of the estate to employees of Celsius and not into our pockets. So next they talked about the exclusivity period, that 4-month period that Celsius has to present a plan. That will end in mid-November, and early December, most likely, Celsius will ask for an extension, which, like I talked about in a previous video, a lot of these directors that are on the restructuring committee are getting paid, $500,000 to $1 million a year. And actually, Celsius Loans did bring that up later on in the video. But the UCC talks about the exclusivity period actually protecting them and being a shield against some of these motions that are being put forth, like the one from the Preferred Equity Committee trying to dollarize the claims in US dollars. The UCC has not confirmed if they will extend exclusivity or not, but most likely I believe that they will. Next, they talked about mining. So they visited 4 of the mining hosting sites in Texas. Thomas says that the mining is not super valuable now, but when Bitcoin rises, it should go up a lot. Next, they talked about Core Scientific, which has been getting a lot of press because they are a big player in the Bitcoin mining space and they may go bankrupt, and there has been some litigation between them and Celsius for a few months now. Essentially, the UCC is making sure that Celsius's claims in Core Scientific are protected regardless of what happens with them, like a possible bankruptcy. The UCC says that the mining problem is very complex because we want to maximize the mining value, but we want that value to go to the creditors like yourself, not the equity committee, which is fighting with their lawyers to get access to that equity. Next, they talked about CEL Token. So Thomas DiFiore, who originally when that name came out, apparently he's some mob boss, but that is not the Thomas DiFiore that I talked about like 3 months ago. It is just a normal guy who has a very, very large position in CEL Token. And anyway, talking about CEL Token, he does say that they want to maximize the value of CEL for people that own CEL and also for the treasury, and he says that is very important to them. And Thomas and Scott, who is another member of the UCC, says that they have read all of the submissions to Stretto, all the letters. Thomas is in many of the Twitter spaces, and they just wanted everybody to know that they are in tune with what the community is talking about. Next, we get to some questions. We have someone who has a lot of USDC. She wishes that Celsius could buy Bitcoin and ETH with her USDC right now and capture some of these great prices for Bitcoin and crypto, but obviously they can't do that. And she also had a question about non-accredited versus accredited investors. So the UCC said that they told Celsius not to get a DIP loan, which would have been secured by the Bitcoin mining operation way when Chapter 11 started. But since then, Celsius has found money, which I'll talk about later in the video, and their monthly expenses have gone down quite a bit. The UCC says that they need the judge to make a ruling on who owns the assets before USDC can be sold to fund Celsius's operations. The person asking the question asks if USDC will be treated differently than other crypto, like if you have Bitcoin and Ethereum and stablecoins, will they be treated differently? And the UCC says that most likely they will all be treated the same equally in a reorganization or a restructuring. And accredited versus non-accredited, the UCC does not have an answer if there will be a difference in how they are treated. So now we have Celsius Loans asking a question. He mentions, like I mentioned earlier, and I've covered in previous videos, how much money the board is making during this time, and says no crap, they want to extend exclusivity. He also asks if they are working with David Barse and Alan Carr for the reorg. They are two people making a bunch of money that are working on restructuring, and I believe they are directors. So Scott with the UCC says he speaks weekly with Chris Ferraro, the CEO, about a reorganization plan, and the UCC has met with both David Barse and Alan Carr, who sit on the board for restructuring. Next, they talked about taxes. The UCC says they're working to make sure that taxes for whatever happens, whether it's a reorg, restructuring, asset sale, whatever, is in the best interest of all of us, especially those with loans. Next, Simon Dixon comes on and he asks which would be faster to get out of Chapter 11, a standalone reorganization or a bid. The UCC says that a reorganization or an asset sale can take around the same amount of time, and they both would require a lot of regulatory compliance to do so. So he didn't give like a specific answer on which one would be quicker. So a reorganization like what Simon Dixon wants to do, or a bid on the assets like FTX bidding on the assets, would obviously both require a lot of regulatory approval. The UCC says that if in your proposal, kind of talking to Simon, if you can make a case for why your plan would get us out of this Chapter 11 quicker and it would be better in all ways, then definitely that would be something that would be considered. And Simon asks earlier if it's a waste of time to make proposals because it's costing a lot of money, and Simon just wants to get their take on that. And what the UCC says is no, it is not a waste of time to be making proposals. Next, we have Mary asking a question, asking who is the decision maker for an offer to be accepted in a bid, like if somebody was bidding on GK8 or the mining. The UCC says the special committee will vote on it, the UCC will share their input, and ultimately the judge will be asked to approve the sale. If there is a reorganization, like with Simon Dixon's plan, then the creditors, like yourself, will be a part of that, and we will be able to vote on that. Next, we have somebody asking, has the UCC seen why we have improved the coin balance, meaning it's gone up? Is it one-time inflows, or are these ongoing inflows like from staking? So Scott at the UCC says it was a one-time source of inflows of coins from Bitfinex, which improved the runway into late winter versus being out of money this fall. The person then asks if mining is making money, and the UCC says to reach out to him directly, which I thought was kind of a stupid answer. Essentially, it's a complicated question, and the reason he asked this question is because in the Twitter spaces, there's a lot of confusion and arguments about, is the mining even profitable? And now with Core Scientific, it complicates things even more. So the UCC, being lawyers, are like, just reach out to us and we'll answer your question there. Next, we have somebody asking if there are any criminal charges being brought to the executives. If so, will this delay the process of getting out of Chapter 11? Is anyone looking into FTX or any other predatory attacks on Celsius? The UCC says there are not any indictments that they know of, and they said that they may not hear about something before it becomes public to everyone anyway. The UCC cannot comment on FTX, but they are looking at ways of putting future lawsuits into a trust that can then be pursued later on. So what Simon Dixon has talked about as well is that we want to get out of this Chapter 11 process, but all of these lawsuits and potential insider clawbacks, they can all go into, I guess, a trust or a fund that will then be distributed back to us if that is part of the reorganization plan, and that is kind of what they're saying. So somebody asked about the Flare token airdrop and what's going on with that. I'm laughing because I feel like on every video for the last 3 months, somebody's like, what about the Flare tokens? And it's just like every time I read about it, I'm like, I don't know about the Flare tokens, guys. So apparently the UCC is finding where this airdrop will be located. They also need to talk to Celsius about how they will receive it, but they are aware of it and they will look into it. Thomas DiFiore said he is impressed with how the community has made so many charts and analyzed all the data that has become public through Stretto. And I'll agree, it's been pretty impressive, really impressive, about how smart this community is and how they are compiling all of this data that is public. A lot of it has been doxed, meaning like our incomes and our wallets have been doxed, but that has given quite the insight into the community. But Thomas does say that they can't allow just anybody into what they call the data room, which is where you can get into the meat and potatoes. That's a bad analogy, but where you can really get into the details of everything Celsius has and has done. Somebody asked about the story going around that Alex did not invest into the ICO, and is that criminal? And this person also asks, could loans be reinstated? And they also ask about retail clawbacks. So the UCC talking about retail clawbacks, which is pretty ridiculous that they have not made a determination that this is ridiculous yet. But the UCC says that a clawback for retail customers would ruin any type of restructuring, essentially, because a company would say, hey, we want you to be our customer, but we're also going to take your money. Obviously, that wouldn't work. But they haven't taken a public position on clawbacks for retail users yet, which I think is really stupid. Scott of the UCC isn't saying you can't rule out retail clawbacks yet, but he says he does not see a reason to do it. But again, he can't publicly say that they have completely eliminated that option right now. And the person asking the question said that this is keeping him up at night, this whole idea of retail clawbacks, because he had to take money out probably like April or May or something to pay for his taxes for the previous year. And I know that Simon Dixon says there will definitely not be any retail clawbacks, and most likely any company that is doing a reorganization will do the same thing for the reasons I mentioned before about nobody would want to stay with you as a customer if you're going to claw back money that you withdrew 3 months before the bankruptcy petition. So that would really ruin any chances of a future business. So next, somebody asked about clawing back money from large account holders like Tether. So the UCC says they're doing a lot of work looking into parties, like large parties like Tether, that got a lot of money out of Celsius before the pause, and that money would go back to the bankruptcy estate and then would eventually come back to us, the creditors. So Simon Dixon has talked a lot about this as well. All of these lawsuits and pursuing claims that could result in money coming back to the estate, possibly even like 1, 2, 3 years later. These things can take a long time. That can all happen outside of Chapter 11 if we have a restructured company where it's set that those clawbacks or claims or whatever will come back to us. So Greg over at the UCC talked about how a bankruptcy reorganization gets finalized. And I'm not going to repeat exactly what he said, but it has to do with putting creditors in different classes and getting a certain percentage of the votes from each class. Right now, he says that we still don't know what classes should be there. Like, are we all in the same class? Or should we be in different classes because withhold and custody and earn and loans all have different, I guess you would say, like legal precedents around them. And that is at 1 hour, 8 minutes, and 30 seconds. If you want to hear him describe that directly, you can go to the video I posted today with the unedited version of this UCC town hall. Again, 1 hour, 8 minutes, 30 seconds if you want to hear that. So the UCC says there are no proposals right now. No decisions have been made regarding what will happen. Scott over at the UCC says that the UCC committee wants to choose the best plan that the community will vote positively for and get it passed. So he says not to get worried that a horrible plan will get voted on or that somehow we, the creditors, will get shafted. Somebody asked a question about that, and that is just sort of the answer. Like the UCC, the members of the UCC are in the same position as yourself. There are people with loans, there are people with custody, there are people with earn, and I believe that they will pick the best plan that we, the creditors, will vote on, and that will be the best option for us. Similar to what happened with Voyager, where the UCC, the Voyager UCC, chose the plan, and if you're in Voyager, we got an email essentially saying, hey, we hope that you vote on the plan that we chose because we think it's the best one for everybody to get the most money back. And there is a lot of like trust with this kind of stuff because we're not going to know all the different plans that are proposed. We're not going to see the 10 different bids and how much money and equity and how much we'd get back and the haircut. We're not going to see this stuff. So I don't like trusting people anymore. I think after this experience, nobody likes trusting people, especially with, our future or our money or crypto. But in this situation, we are going to have to trust the UCC that they are acting in our best interest. Next, we have Zach asking if Celsius is going to present a reorganization plan, and Scott with the UCC says yes, they are working on a reorg, and Scott, a member of the UCC, says that he loves the community participation and loves the value in the community. And the final question I'll cover is from Joe. He says, is the UCC working on a standalone plan themselves? And also, can Celsius work out all of the regulatory issues without needing to sell the assets during a horrible time, which we are now, in a bear market? So the UCC says they are talking to Celsius very, very often about what should go into a reorganization plan. They are working with Celsius to help them create a plan that would meet all the regulatory requirements and one where the UCC would support. But also, the UCC has a backup plan, or they have contingent plans, if they and Celsius do not reach a consensus and agreement, and they're doing this so there aren't any more unnecessary delays moving forward. All right, guys, that is it for the UCC Town Hall update, condensing an hour and a half into a much shorter time frame if you are busy and just want to get the nuggets out of it. So guys, if you have not already followed me and if you want to catch these updates, please do so. I also want to thank everybody who has been supporting my station through super thanks, which you can do when you comment or when you're on my watching my YouTube video, and also channel memberships. Those are awesome. They really help me as well. So I just want to thank all of you guys for everything you're doing to support me, making these updates for you guys, and hopefully this Celsius stuff ends soon. And when that happens, I'll have to transition back into general crypto info or completely switch to van life. I haven't quite decided yet. Or maybe I'll do both. We'll see. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. And until next time, talk with you soon, and bye for now.